Good morning, everybody. It's good to be here, and I appreciate the attendance of everybody here. If you're a visitor, we appreciate you being here also. Vision for 2024, and somehow I get elected every year. I don't know how this happens, but if you noticed, Derek's not here this morning. His wife had some problems during the night, and he's not able to be with us this morning, and Dennis will probably cover that. Also want to straighten out something that I said last week. Brother asked me, said, well, how come we're going to shorten all the sermons? And I said, well, I don't think I said that, but just in case, we're just going to shorten the announcements and not all the sermons and not the worship service. And he told me, there's some people come for 30 minutes. They don't want to stay for just 10 minutes and go home. So anyway, I hope if I did say that, I apologize. But we're just going to shorten the announcements and not the sermons and the worship service. And is that okay, Clay? But today's the last day of 2023. And as we look back over the last 12 months, we all have experienced some good times. And I would say most of us had some trying times this year. Maybe it was with sickness, or maybe it was with death and lost some loved ones. But the world goes around, and everybody goes through these things. I hope you had more good than bad. But that was last year. So when we think of the new year, we always talk about we have new hopes and new possibilities and new dreams that we think about in a new year. Are you going to set some new goals or maybe make some New Year's resolutions tonight? On a Facebook post I seen this week, it said, first rule of 2024, do not dwell on what went wrong in 2023. Wrap it up by December 31st. Well, wrap it up today, and let's move forward and look forward to the next year. But I see the turn of the calendar of a new year, as a big deal. It's the idea of a clean slate. It appeals to most people. It doesn't change, that we can start over. Many people tonight and maybe tomorrow will make some resolutions, and they're going to make some resolutions. But most of the time, as we think about people make resolution, it's all about me. They usually say, well, I'm going to get more fit. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to read more books. I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. But usually it's kind of self-centered. And I also might mention that with resolutions, statistics say they're usually over with by February 1st. So anyways, if we make some that we're going to talk about today, I hope you carry it out through the whole year. But again, they are hard to keep. And like I said, I think sometimes we make those resolutions and then it makes us feel bad because we don't carry them out, or that we quit sticking to them. But if you notice, again, that it's part of being human that we want to improve ourselves and we want to make things better. But what about our relationship to God? He has already given us the opportunity for a fresh start and a second chance through His Son, Jesus Christ. Shouldn't we be thinking about some goals and some resolutions in regard to our spiritual lives? So that's kind of what the lesson is going to deal with, and most of what we're going to deal with this morning is that we need to think about resolutions or goals for God, our spiritual goals. Have we thought about those? Have we made some already? Which I hope you have, but again, try to motivate people to think about what are your spiritual goals, or what would be a good spiritual resolution you might make, will help get you to heaven, or would also help get other people to heaven. And again, as Larry talked about this morning, about the goals that we have this year and what we're looking forward to do this year. But what if you aligned your life and your activities with His eternal purpose for you in 2024? What if you resolved to put Him and His will, His word as your number one priority? How would that change your life? How would that change your family's life? And how would that change people that you know that are lost if we put His will and His word as our number one priority? And resolutions are personal. And we need to look at ourselves and ask, is God my first priority? That's what we need to think about. That's what the most important resolution you could ever make. Is God my first priority? So we're going to look at some verses, or a few verses, that can help us determine what our goals or our resolutions should be in 2024. 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 5. It says, examine yourselves to see whether you are in the faith. Test yourselves. We need to ask ourselves, is God pleased with my life in service to his will? This past year, have I served God to the best of my ability? If not, your resolution should be, I'm going to change, and I'm going to serve God in 2024 to the best of my ability. And when we talk about examine or self-examination, it's difficult and demanding experience. Most of us think, well, I might be a little bit off, or I might not do as much as I should, but, really there's nothing wrong with me. And a lot of times we say, well, so-and-so's not doing much, or they aren't really serving the Lord like they should, but look how good I am. And sometimes when we self-examine, we make excuses because brother or sister's not doing what they should be doing. We are each accountable individually. It doesn't matter what brother or sister or what the world is doing. We've got to put God first. We've got to put him as our number one priority. So where are you in your spiritual growth and making God your number one priority? And that's what I want to get you to think about this morning. Let's look at another verse. Look at Revelation chapter 2, 2 through 5, where John says, I know your deeds and your labor and your perseverance, and that you cannot tolerate evil people. You have put those who call themselves apostles to the test, and they are not, and you found them to be false. And you have perseverance and have endured on account of my name and have not become weary. But I have this against you. You have left your first love. Therefore remember from where you have fallen and repent and do the deeds you did at first, or else I am coming to you and I'll remove your lampstand from its place unless you repent. So this message here, we see the church of Ephesus. Christ praised the church for all their things we're doing. And as you come to mind, and I thought about it from an elder standpoint, is we are doing so many great things here. So many great things. And I praise you for everything you're doing the work for the Lord. But that's what they were doing, but they were missing something. And Christ tells them, you were failing. You need to be aware of, because you become too comfortable in your service. You have lost your first love. And if you think about first love, you can define it as enthusiastic, fervent, intense dedication to Christ. Larry kind of put that point forward this morning in his class. Are we fervent or enthusiastic in our service to Christ? Or are we going through the motions? I think this was the problem here at the church of Ephesus. They were practicing church, but really were they doing the will of God? Were they still serving him? Do you remember when you were first baptized? Were you on fire for Christ at that time? How many people did you tell that you were baptized, that you were saved, and you were going to heaven? I know my situation, all my relatives told me that, yeah, you might be baptized, but now all your relatives, they're going to hell because they don't practice what you do. I said, well, all I'm practicing what the Bible says. All I'm doing what the Bible informs us that we need to do to get to heaven. And so they made you feel guilty. And some of us lose our first love when the world gets involved in telling us, well, that's not the way to serve God. Everybody is going to heaven, they're just on different branches, or whatever the excuse might be. But again, where's your first love as far as God is concerned? He told them, you need to be doing the deeds that are expected of you. And they had stopped doing those. So have you lost your first love? Again, it's self-examination of what we are doing for God today, or what we have been doing for God. Have we lost our first love? Have we lost that enthusiasm to tell people that I am saved because I'm following the will of God and doing exactly what the scriptures tell me I must do to have my sins forgiven and go to heaven? Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 and 25. And let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking our own assembling together as the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. It tells we should stimulate one another to love and to good deeds. How is that done? The scriptures tell us there, by not forsaking our own assembling together, which encourages one another. Where do we get our encouragement from? It's in this building here, or when we fellowship together outside of this building. We are built up. As you study this verse and you look at it on the screen there, are you living in a way that shows that God is your number one priority? Is assembling together still important to you? What does God expect from us? What the Scripture says, that we should be assembling together. And as you think about this verse and you look at it closely, it should change your thinking. It should change your schedule. It should change your family life. It should change your work life and your relationships and your commitments. Is God your number one priority? Continue to ask yourself that as we go through this lesson. Theme for 2024, reaching out. I think most people are aware of that. Most of the teachers have talked about it. Clay's talked about it several weeks. It's no secret what our theme is. So everybody should know what this theme is and what it means. But we as elders thought that this coming year, we wanted to set some goals and resolutions for our spiritual life in the congregation. And that's what the elders chose, is reaching out. We started to say reach out and touch someone. We just didn't think that would go over too well in the world today. And so we stuck to reaching out instead of reach out and touch someone. 20 years ago, that would have been okay probably, but not in today's society. Keep your hands to yourself. But when we're talking about reaching out, again, the class that started this morning, Larry's talking about it's not rocket science, and it's really about evangelism, as Larry made the point this morning. Also in room Q&R, Al Skinner, when he gets here, will be teaching the New Testament church. Wednesday, Book of James, Landon Love will be preaching it. And in the second quarter, in room Q&R, singing class that Tim Garrison will have. Again, I can't thank Tim enough. I think we have the best singers. Now, I haven't visited a whole lot of congregations, but we have the best singing and the best song leaders that I know of. And I tell this story about Joe and I went to Centerville one time, and he was going to sing and I was going to preach. And he told me I had to sing the bass. and there was about 15 or 20 people in the congregation. And I don't know what we sounded like, but at least they stayed for the lesson. And it just makes you so happy how we sing out. And other people that visit us said, you have such good singing. And Tim and our other song leaders, Mike and Tyler and Gary and Doug and I'll leave somebody out, I know. But anyway, we have so many. And we should be proud of those. And again, we appreciate the work that Tim does in that singing class. The second quarter, from creation to eternity, I'll be teaching at an auditorium. And again, Michael Fetters is going to teach. It's not rocket science. And Clay said, I'm going to help him, but Mike's doing the teaching. That's what I heard. But Wednesday, Ezra, Josh Talbert, and 1st and 2nd Peter and Q&R, teaching Jonah and Q&R. Nehemiah is going to be taught by Josh. We asked Josh, could he do Ezra and Nehemiah? He said, I can't do it in one quarter. And so we gave him 2. And so he's going to continue to teach Nehemiah in the 3rd quarter. In the ladies' class, Shelley Gentry volunteered to start this class, but I think she wants other ladies to step up and teach some of those classes. I think that's right. And so again, that's the ladies' class in the 3rd quarter. And the 4th quarter, we got Conversions and Acts. Mike Youngblood will be teaching that in auditorium. And Q&R will be Ecclesiastes, Ben Prasser. I was scared the name you have that book, so that's why I put Ecclesiastes. But anyways, and then we'll do the fall focus again, like we have. And again, if you would like to volunteer to preach in the fall focus, feel free to tell me anytime, and I'll put your name down. And again, out there in the vestibule, it's on the table there. Those classes are printed out there for you to take home. Calendar of events. First thing again is our teen weekend, Colby Junkin, on March 16th. And then we're going to have a special day for family and friends on that Sunday. Again, we're going to try this. All the things that we're talking about in January, hopefully we can put that to work in February, and we can bring some visitors or some people that we think needs to hear the gospel to a family and friends day. Again, I hope that works out like we think it will. And if we get evangelistic and if we get a care for the lost, we will bring some people to that day. VBS, again, Josh Weber is going to do that in June. Most of you might not know Josh. He was an intern here several years ago. He's preaching for a church in Alabama, somewhere around Birmingham, I think is where he's preaching. We look forward to having him back. Dominica, I better not forget that one. It's not on the list outside, but anyway, we are going July 13th to the 20th. If you want to go, we would love to have you. And we don't want to go back in August again, but we are going in July. And we look forward to that. We've probably already got 5 or 6 people going that I know of. And we got the gospel, well, I've already done it. But anyways, we got the gospel singing, Gary and Tim and Mike and Tyler, July 26th. And the ladies' weekend is Nikki Lee, August 5th. Her husband's a gospel preacher. He'll be here in 2025, do our gospel meeting. And so she is going to be our speaker for the ladies' weekend. Gospel meeting, we're going to have Sean Jeffries back. I think most people know Sean. He was preached here for 6 or 7 years, I think, and he's in Phoenix, Arizona now. And if you haven't heard him, you'll be very uplifted. Sean is just a great gospel preacher. Also, Elders Deacon meeting, again, November 2nd, and put that on the list and on your calendar. And a couple other things we've got. We've got a summer intern this year. If you were here Wednesday night, Caleb was here with his most of his family, I guess, parents and some aunts and uncles. So we look forward. He'll be here for 4 months. Now, he's not a newbie, I guess you call it, as far as preaching. He's got a lot of ability. He's done a lot of preaching in different congregations. But like what Clay told us, is he's never been around a single congregation for a long period of time and see what preaching's all about, and see how the relationships that the preacher has to make and the work that he has to do of being a full-time gospel preacher. And again, most of our interns that we've had have turned into full-time gospel preachers. We continue to have them back. And I think it's great for the congregation. And again, everybody is so welcoming, and usually the interns just really appreciate what they get when they're here for 3 or 4 months. Also, we got something called the Preacher Boot Camp. This is an idea that Clay came up with, and I know Joey will be back involved in that, Joey Richards, and it's going to have some high school students that are thinking about or want to see if they want to be a full-time gospel preacher for the future. And they're going to be here for 2 weeks. They're going to be staying at Bradley's house, and so they might not come back. But anyways, but Bradley volunteered. I just think it's a great thing to be around Bradley for 2 weeks, the wisdom that he will give them. And we look forward to that. And hopefully it's something we can build on in the future and get some young men that want to be involved in that. If you're a young man in the congregation, Isaac, I see you. But anyway, college man, I'm sorry. But anyways, if you think that you want to be a preacher in the future, and it doesn't have to be a teenager, but again, you get involved in this boot camp, and they'll be teaching also Vacation Bible School. So they'll put some of the things they've learned to use by teaching the Vacation Bible School. So we just think this is a great thing for the congregation. We really look forward to this. Evangelists that we support. Again, we've been supporting Elkin probably 15, 17 years, something like that in Dominica. We've got Seth McDonald in Missouri. And he's just doing a great work in Missouri. Blake Edwards, he was here a couple weeks ago from Atlanta, and that church is growing, and he's doing a great job. These are the ones in Mozambique: Eduardo, don't ask me how to pronounce Amson, and Noah. Just a couple of stories. Samson baptized 7 people Saturday. They had a Bible study on Thursday, and baptized 7 people yesterday morning. And so again, we're so involved in this work, and I promise I will give a report sometime in January about the work that's going on over there, and pictures and everything. But again, there's so many people that are coming to Christ, Africa, that are just hungry to hear the gospel. Like I'm sure you're aware of, while I was over there, we baptized 25 people, a whole village that had never heard the word of God. When they heard it, and I'll tell the whole story, but again, we drove 25 miles to a river to baptize them because they didn't have any water in the village that they're at. Noah, just a quick story on him. He had a bad motorcycle accident. I went and visited him while I was there. He's still in a wheelchair. Both of his legs were broken, and he's got some other internal injuries and has some more operations to go. But he was riding a motorcycle, and somebody's car door flew open, and he hit that car door, or that truck door, I can't remember which one. And so he's been he hasn't been doing a lot of preaching for the last 6 months or so, and he's going to have another operation, may have already happened on his knee. You could take his kneecap and just move it up and down about 6 or 7 inches, and he's supposed to have that really quickly, and really soon, I hope. And so we're going to continue to support him until he can get back on his feet. And while we were over there, he was at the church that we preached at, and it's a little different when you have a translator for what you say, but when you got 2 translators, it's even more difficult. But he was one of the translators, but he's in a wheelchair and is having a difficult time because he can't drive or can't walk. And so this past year, as everybody's aware of, we've lost 3 evangelists that we've supported. We got Matt and Bassford and Ronald Rourke and Norman Sam have passed away this past year. So again, and also Rufus de Clifford, he's still living, but he's being fully supported. He's preaching now in Paducah, Kentucky. So there's 4 evangelists that we supported for several years. So again, as the elders, where are we getting the most, what you call bang for your buck, I guess? And so we are going to try to support probably 5 more preachers in Africa. We just think, and I met several of them there while I was there, because we went to about 10 or 12 churches. But again, we just think that they're doing such a great work there. Any way we can help spread the gospel. And so that's what we're looking at in the future or down the road. And also we're thinking about, Ron passed away, and his son Greg Rourke has been to Africa and Mozambique probably 7 or 8 times. And he's been doing a lot of work in South America. He's going to come and talk to us today, the elders today, and tell us about what his plans are. He wants to carry on the work of his father that preached over there and helped those churches get started for many, many years. So we're going to talk to him today, and so we might be supporting him like we were supporting his father. And we'll talk to him today. So again, this is part of your work. As Lee talked about, part of the congregation, where your contribution goes. So this is your work. The money you give is what's helping save these souls in Africa or wherever the preachers are that we support in America or Dominica. So again, we could say that over 60% of the money that is collected goes to evangelism. Over 60% in this congregation goes to evangelism. And we just think that is just so great. And I always say that what a generous congregation we are as far as supporting the mission of this church here. So what can you do for them? Again, pray for them. Pray for these evangelists that we support, because they are part of us. And if there's any way that you can send them an email or a letter or a card to encourage them, we think it'd be a great thing to hear from the congregation that supports them. And we also got Clay. I forgot about that last name there, but we do support Clay and his family, and we appreciate all the work he does. Like I said, many people are not aware of the work of a preacher and what he has to go through, and it's sometimes a 24/7 job, and we just appreciate him and his family because it takes a good wife to support a preacher and be effective, and I really believe that, and they do a great job. Again, I have to say thank you. I try to do this every year, and I know I'll leave something out. But we talk about you, well, not personally, but anyway, we do talk about the congregation every week when we get together as elders at 4 o'clock. We discuss, a lot of different things, but really what we talk about is the love that you have for the Lord. The love you have for the Lord, for the church, for the lost, and for each other. We see it constantly. And we're just so appreciative of that, and we're just lucky to be your elders, I can tell you that, because it's such a great congregation. And I was telling Brother Larry, it's the only congregation I've been involved in, so all the churches should be like this. So, but anyways, I know they're not. And but again, we just we want to say that we appreciate everything you do. We want to say thank you to all the deacons and the work they do, to all our Bible class teachers. And again, I'll say it every year, we can't thank you enough for teaching these kids and the adults. We always need teachers. And again, we always need volunteers to teach our kids. And I really feel, and I've said it before from the pulpit up here, that if it hadn't been for the good teachers when my kids were growing up, they wouldn't be Christians today. I really feel that, because you took care and concern. Now, sometimes you may have to throw them out of class, but anyways, you did love them and took care of them, and I really think it made the difference, of why they're Christians today. Nope, I don't have it on the board. But anyway, we'll get to that. But anyway, it's also again, I mentioned the song leaders, but there's so many things that go in the congregation that, again, a lot of people don't know about. But we've got card senders, those that visit the sick, the Helping Hands group, the basket takers, those who keep the church building clean. We've got counters, we've got greeters, security members, to those who practice hospitality, those who handle the money, the Lord's money, salt shakers, nursing home visitors, Bible study and devotion leaders. I can't thank you enough, and I know I probably left something out, but again, we as elders just want to thank you for anything you do for the church here, anything you do for a member here, any person that you visit or call or send a card to. We just want to personally thank you from the eldership of anything that you do as far as the work in the Lord, and hope you'll again continue to do that. And even if you look at and think about, if God is my priority, there might be some things I can do that I haven't been doing. And that's what we're going to preach and teach about this year. And we are truly blessed. And in Matthew 5:16, let your light so shine before men that they will see the good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. And again, that's what it's all about here in Jackson Heights. And then our mission statement, again, we've had this for several years, but to make known the wisdom of God. And that's what our preaching and teaching is all about. And it comes from Ephesians 3 and verse 10. That through the church, the manifold wisdom of God might now be known to the principalities and powers in heavenly places. So again, the lost, we can tell them how to be saved, how you can get to heaven. The wisdom of God is how to live a godly life. It's contained here in the scriptures. How to treat one another, how not to lose our souls, how not to fall from grace. Because we teach and preach, once saved, always saved is a false doctrine. So again, how we can not lose our souls, what we need to be taught, and what is important that we need to hear as a congregation moving forward. And the main thing, or one of the best things, is how best to get to heaven. What do we need to do in our lives, or what do we need to do as we live our lives that we make sure that we get to heaven? And that's the manifold wisdom of God. We have it. We need to hold on to it. We need to practice it. And we are blessed here that we share the wisdom of God with our teachers and our preachers. And that's our mission at Jackson Heights, is to always make known the wisdom of God. Reaching out. When you think about reaching out, there's a couple things that come to mind. And so this year, again, we want you to reach, and that means to stretch. It involves movement, and it involves action. So we're talking about reaching out. It's a word that we can put into practice. It's an action word, and it's something we should be doing. Reach may be used in reference to anything arrived at by any degree of effort. So when you think about, here's a great example when you talk about reaching out, action, we're talking about movement. Anytime that Gran or Courtney walks into a room, those two little grandkids, their arms are like this, and they'll walk around like this, and they're reaching out. You know why they're reaching out? Well, Tim, I'm sure you've seen it. Safety and security. Safety and security. They know when the mom or the grandmother picks them up, and Drew does too, but anyway, they run from me. But anyways, but the example of reaching out, that's for safety and security. So if we love the lost enough, we want them to have safety and security. We got to do the reaching, because the world today, they're running from the gospel, or they don't care about the gospel, or they don't want to hear the gospel, or they've got their mind made up what the gospel is, or where they're going. But again, we want everybody to reach out. We want that to be our priority this year. So let's look at some verses. Romans chapter 10, verses 14. How then shall they call on him whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach except they be sent? Even as is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that bring glad tidings and good things. So again, without hearing the word, without us being the preachers. And what does it say about how beautiful you are if you bring the word to the lost? And I don't know how beautiful you might think that we are, but anyways, that's what God says. How beautiful is the feet that go to the lost. How beautiful the feet that are looking for the lost. And so that's what we want to practice more and more this year. It's not that we haven't practiced it in the past. We have. But again, the world today is a lot different than it was 10 years ago as far as the gospel is concerned. Most people today don't want to hear it. I mean, that's just the truth. And it's hard. But we got to seek out. We got to reach out because there's a precious soul that's not going to heaven if they haven't obeyed the gospel of Jesus Christ. Colossians chapter 4, verse 2 through 6. Devote yourselves to prayer, keeping alert in it with an attitude of thanksgiving, praying at the same time for us as well, that God will open for us a door for the word, so that we may speak forth the mystery of Christ, for which I have also been in prison, that I may clear in the way I ought to speak. Conduct yourselves with wisdom toward outsiders, making the most of opportunity. Let your speech always be with grace, as though seasoned with salt, so that you will know how you should respond to each person. So Paul is asking for prayers. If we're going to reach out, we need to ask for prayers. That should be our first step. Pray for the lost. Pray for the ones you want to talk to or reach, or that you want to reach. And it tells us, look for the opportunities. And I know that you've heard this before. This is not a new sermon about how to reach the lost or how to talk to the lost or whatever it might be. But again, make that our number one priority this year. You know, reaching out. Because Paul said he wanted the prayer, but he wanted the door to be open for him. And then he says, conduct yourselves with wisdom. So he's telling the Christians there, back to you too also. Be careful what you say. You know, keep an open mind, keep an open communication with people. And you think about it, how many relatives have we talked to, or friends or coworkers? Well, hey, try it again. They didn't kill you the first time, right? And you didn't get fired, or you didn't get thrown out of the house. You know, go back and try again. They might be open more today than they may have been 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And I know how it is to talk to relatives. It is tough. But you know, if my grandmother and grandfather were still here, I would go back again and try to teach them the gospel and try to teach them the truth. And so that's what we'd like you to do. We want to encourage everyone to reach out this year, and reaching involves a little extra effort. And we know that. But how much energy are you willing to spend depends on how badly you want what you're reaching for. Just like those kids, little babies, you know, they're reaching out with extra effort. They want mom or grand to pick them up. You know, they want safety and security. We've got to reach out and bring that safety and security to others. Paul was preparing them to reach out. It might be a relative, a friend, or a coworker, or even acquaintance. But the more it means to you, the farther you're willing to stretch. How far are you willing to stretch to share the gospel of Jesus Christ? How far are you willing to reach out? That's the question we all have. And again, I'm preaching to myself too. I'm not just preaching to the congregation. You know, it's hit me in the face too. I've got to put extra effort in. I've got to reach out more than I have in the past. And again, sometimes you think you've reached out to everybody you've known. No, you haven't. And the important thing about it is I don't know who you know. We've all got, you know, hundreds of people that you know that I don't know, that Clay doesn't know. So that's who we got to reach out and just take advantage of the opportunity. Pray about it and take advantage of the opportunity to reach out. Mark 16 and 15, he said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. So that's a challenge of 2024. What is your heart's desire for the salvation of others? You know, truly look deep in your heart. What does our heart say about the salvation for others? And what am I willing to do? It starts by reaching out. Christ asked his disciples to reach out. And if you think about it, we are his disciples today. He expects the same thing from us that he expected for the disciples back then. Also, brothers and sisters, my heart's desire in Romans 10 and 1, my heart's desire and my prayer to God for them is for their salvation. It is for their salvation. That's how Paul felt. He had that desire to save souls. We need to develop that same desire. And it's frustrating, and most of the time you're not going to have any success. We know that. Everybody knows that. But where's the desire? If I still have a desire, I'll talk to more people. If I decide that I want to reach out this year, I will. If I decide not to, I won't do anything. I'll just keep on living the same life I've been living. So that's what we're looking for, a change. And again, I'm talking about myself. I've got to have that desire. I've got to have in my heart the salvation of others. Matthew 9, seeing the crowds, starting in verse 36, seeing the crowds, he felt compassion for them because they were distressed and downcast, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Therefore, plead with the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest. Jesus told his disciples that the harvest of the soul was ready. It's ready today, same thing, if not even more. There's so many more out there in the world today. And he pled for to send forth workers. And Jesus told his disciples they should be ready. And again, they should be interested in the spiritual condition of others. And if we are concerned, we will reach out. So who is going to be a worker for the Lord? I asked Doug to sing that song, and I'm sure that's not the last time we will hear it this year. But who wants to be a worker for the Lord in 2024? That has to be our priority. A couple more things. Why is this important about reaching out? The importance of sharing the gospel of Christ with those who are lost cannot be overemphasized. Jesus wants everyone to hear the good news of salvation. And we'll see it again. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Go again. And God has provided a gospel with power to change people's mind. When you think about it, if they don't hear the gospel, like it says in Romans 1:16, if I'm not ashamed of the gospel, before it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek, that's the power we have. We have this, every one of us has this power right here. God tells us got power, but the power's in the Word. So if you've never heard the Word, how are you going to get that power? Again, we've got the power that we can use our voice and our abilities to communicate and save the lost. What is the most effective way to reach people today? And I was telling Clay about this study I had read. It's not a new study, and you may have heard it before. But this Institute for American Church Growth asked over 10,000 people this question: what was responsible for your coming to Christ and this church? And their answers were this: I had a special need, 3%. I just walked in, 3%, which we know that happens because we have people walk in every day, and some of them have been converted over the last several years. I like the minister, 6%. Not too bad, Clay. I visited there. I seen a sign, or I seen the sign out front, or I seen the website, or I seen on Facebook, and I visited there. I like the Bible classes. And that's one thing we do hear from visitors, is they love the Bible classes. I attended a gospel meeting, 0.5%. It's just not effective as it was years ago. People just don't come. And I'll say this, sometimes our members don't come either. But the gospel meetings are meant for us today. That's how we build up, encourage, and edify each one another, is the preachers we bring in here for this gospel meeting. All these events and the scheduled events we talk about are for your benefit. As the elders look at the things, what can help the congregation grow and to be more or closer to God? And that's why we schedule a lot of those events. But here's the kicker. I like the programs. So these special programs we have, and we have a friend day, if we get 3% participation, that would be fantastic. I mean, if we can get 3%, we've got 200 members here, so that'd be at least 6 people that we bring in the congregation to hear a sermon from Clay. Like I said, it'd be a special sermon just for visitors. And again, that would be great. But here's the big one here. Here's the big one here. A friend or a relative invited me. Almost 80%. This is my story. My aunt asked Sharon, would you come to church Sunday? Because they knew we were looking around. We'd been to several churches. I don't want to describe what we've seen and what went on, but we went to several churches. But my aunt reached out and just said, will you come to services? Well, I went fishing. I didn't come that first Sunday. And she came back and she said, you need to come. You need to see what the congregation was all about. They're so friendly. Now, they don't have an organ, and I was used to that. But again, they don't have an organ, but you need to come. So my wife reached out to me that I needed to come. And I said, I'll come, And once I came, I thought, wow, all they're preaching is the Bible. That's kind of strange, And that was strange to me for a while. And I always say, I asked 1,000 questions because I needed to know. I needed to know why they just preach the Bible. But again, that's almost overwhelming that you can think of 80%. So how are we going to get those people in here at 80% again? We've got to reach out. That's just so important. Just invite somebody. What's the worst they could do? Say no, or not show up, or I've already got a church. I've had several people tell me, well, I go to church already. I don't need to go there. But anyway, but if we don't invite, they'll never come. If you don't say anything to them, they'll never show up. They'll never know the gospel of Christ if we don't invite. So give them an opportunity to say, oh, I might look at it. But again, I wouldn't be where I am today if my aunt hadn't reached out to me and my wife. And that's the truth. But the obvious point, to the survey is, if churches are to grow, it will be through the efforts of individual members. Now, if we never invite a person, where do you think we'll be in 10 years? I'm one of the old folks, but you look around, how many people are going to be here in 10 years? Just in our congregation. So if we don't invite and get some people in here, again, we're just going to wither up and die. And that's a harsh statement. But you see it all around the county. There's several churches that we used to send preachers 2 years ago are gone because they had no members. They got down to 5, 6, 10, or whatever, so they closed the doors. So again, that is the main thing about that survey. The greatest potential lies with those people who have some contact with members of the local congregation. The people you know. Preachers, programs, classes may help, but in most cases they will only maintain the size of the congregation. Such congregational efforts are worthwhile, however. They can reach people with whom we might not otherwise have in contact. But the fact remains, the greatest potential lies with those people that are here today to reach out and invite somebody and reach out and tell them about the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I'll wrap up this lesson with you today. Each one, reach one in 2024. Easy to remember if you want to know what the theme is. Each one, reach one. That's my goal, is to bring somebody to Christ today and invite as many people as possible. But again, each one, reach one.